Okay, I'm going to start over with the intro. Stellasue Lee sees poems in emerging images poured in concrete, in grass growing. It all becomes poem-worthy. She was a founding editor of Rattle, a poetry journal, and is now editor emerita. Two of her books have been entrants for the Pulitzer Prize, and her new and selected work, Queen of Jacks, is now available. She won the Grand Prize of Poetry to Aid Humanity in 2013 by Al Fatah in Malaysia. Dr. Lee received her PhD from Honolulu University and works privately with students who are dedicated in learning how to write. Her students are all over the US, and I can see quite a few of them are here. She wants you to know she was born in the year of the dragon. And she gives her website, but I'm going to ask her to, when she gets a chance later, to post it on the chat. Thank you. Go ahead, Stellasue.
You'll need to unmute, Stellasue.
Unmute. I've already done that. Thank you, Jim. Well, hello, everybody. Hello, all my lovely students and people I haven't yet to meet. Hello, Ruth. I haven't seen you for years. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Polly. Oh, this is so exciting. Hi, Joe. Hi, my husband. Hi. Oh, my gosh. Hi, Vicki. I hope Deborah's there. I can't see her. My sister-in-law. So it's wonderful to see everyone. So, you know, my resume sounds really impressive, but when it gets down to the poetry, it's just me and the page. So then it's not so impressive. So I'm going to read, I'm going to keep track of the time. I have about 10 minutes. And so I'm going to read, going to start my reading. And the first poem is Letter to My Mother, whom I blamed for absolutely everything. You've been gone 50 years, Mother. I no longer blame you, and I miss that. This business of accepting responsibility myself for every little thing is difficult. So when things go awry, my husband and I blame Kaylee, mischievous little thing that she is. She handles it well, much better than you ever did. As long as she can jump up on the kitchen counter and supervise my opening a can of cat food into a clean bowl twice a day, she's good to go. She is independent, sweet, and funny, as you were, a true nonconformist, just like you. She is most beautiful, a showstopper. She has star quality, like you did. The longest day. I'm not happy, I told the therapist. I've no place to write. I didn't mention a friend said I could use her guest house. A church down the road offered a pew. My husband said I could use a studio, but those won't do. I need solitude. No one waltzing through on their way to life. I can't write with a cat in my lap. I've tried bedrooms, living room. I would be happy with a place to write, but it has to be the right place. No one smiling, asking if I need a refill on my coffee. No, I was brought up better than to say, go away. So tonight, I've come to the 5th floor deck of our loft. Far below, notes from a cello waft up and settle around me. It's summer solstice, my birthday, damn near dark. A bat just flew by and katydids are rubbing their legs together, whatever they do to make that razor noise. I find them distracting, but not quite as distracting as a cat in my lap, making little star feet all over my body. My birthday. So many now, it's become an embarrassment. I think about my mother, dead 50 years, how after the funeral, her sister said, Your mother always was a turd of misery. I am not my mother. Grief, a great sadness, especially as a result of a death. English Dictionary. A female cardinal flew into our glass door. She lies on the deck, wings still and spread out, neck so obviously broken. There's nothing to be done. The male sits in a river birch and looks at the spot where she lies. He is magnificent in sorrow, brilliant against the bareness of tree, fresh fallen snow. We gently lift her, deliberate in our grief. For 3 days after, the male appears, expectant. The memory of her must sit in his mind as a thin but measurable weight. It flies with him over our steepled churches, the shingled rooftops, open fields, the rolled bales of cut grass gathered for winter. You have to know. You have to know what's more than enough to know what is enough. William Blake. He arrived at the museum seconds late in a hurry, his long legs propelling him up the worn stairs 2 at a time. How could he know she was all he had thought about wanting? That he would be her everything, the luck of it all, both of them having had more than they could possibly stand of the others, to know exactly what it took to be enough. And since that Valentine's Day has just passed, I thought, and I've never done this before, I thought to read some love poems. How to hold your arms when you're in love. Time wants to show me a different country. It says the North and South can join and take away separation so that one man, one woman can live in a place both call home. Home is wherever they are. Family will become the common denominator, and time will allow this gift in a million different ways. I have saved for this day, tucked my love away in the museums and churches of my heart, knowing one day a love that can endure for all time would step forth. This is the way I hold my arms when I'm in love, outstretched, palms up, sending all the light I can manufacture to learn our natures and become one. Concerning love, then, if a man has the spirit of his youth and hasn't become hardened, and as well has the courage to love a woman in her 60s as he might have when she was 30, well, if I were that woman, I'd wake each morning having found something to cheer about, maybe the sound of rain on a roof or an ordinary owl hooting. This, of course, would add color to my cheeks and a glow of expectancy about just how bright the future of a day could turn. Then, should you be here for a visit, I would tell you it happened just today. Morning sky still darkened, a rain-slick street unfettered, and every curve of my physical structure molded to that man's body wrapped within his arms. I'd tell you at last, I understand he isn't going to let go, that it is reasonable even to find love as whole and perfect as light falling across an eastern sky. The key, my breast, the moon. Here is a key to my house. Think of it as afternoon light poured liquid over our bodies. What remains is a willingness for communion, mingled with hunger, ignited by fire, and pounded into the shape of a rugged trail that leads to my door. Until now, there's been nothing of value kept here. Think of this key as an uncharted pathway. Study the multifaceted leaves of the aurora willow from my bed. Watch how beveled glass allows leaves to spiral in wind. Imagine the leaf hairless, without intention. The door of my house is concave, hollowed inward, like the curve between my breast and my stomach that allows light to pass through and the moon to rise from the sea to that point just above this house. We will re-landscape. That rugged trail leading to the door will no longer be needed. Let it return to its original woodland of interior live oaks, shrubs of monkey flowers and manzanitas. The great horned owl might return. I tell you this, after 2 days and 2 nights, the world outside will no longer exist. The key I hand to you will become a band of gold. Let it encircle your finger. Let it wait light on your tongue as a communion wafer. Here is the key. Take it. James Bond Beach. There's nothing unusual about the day. The sky takes on light about 5:10. I turn the heat on, feed cats, nothing I haven't done 100 times over. No, 1,000 times, maybe even 1,000,000 times by now. Who among us figures these things out? Yet last night I was in Jamaica, walking along James Bond Beach in the Buff. Honey, in Jamaica, waterfalls cascade off hills right into the sea. Why, trees grow right out of the surf. Didn't matter to me, I was naked. I'm telling you, I was ready for anything. Admission. There's that moon again, February moon, moon in Aquarius, Valentine's moon. My mind is wrapped around a possibility others have found a whole lot easier to comprehend than I. This Valentine's Day thing, this love thing, that one man for the rest of your life stuff. That is what I'm talking about. Now I have that man, and he has me. All I can tell you, dear reader, silly happy, crazy sad, angry enough to think about doing all kinds of evil, he still holds me. And I, by some stumbling grace, allow it. And the last poem I'll read today is Skoll. Plenty, more than plenty, has been said about love, but dinner tonight finds us sitting in front of a clear lucite mat placed on a glass table that fits so perfectly in our bay window. Friends, mowed grounds, with roses blooming all around. On our plate, arugula turned gently with freshly slivered garlic cloves olive oil, sea salt, served with 2 thinly sliced pieces of pot roast, wine, grapes, almonds, my foot resting at ease against my husband's leg. He lifts his glass to make a toast to all the sweet days of our life together, my dear. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stellasue. It's a pleasure to have you. Our next reader is Lavina Blossom. Lavina is a visual artist, painting and mixed media, as well as a writer. She grew up in rural Michigan and now lives in Southern California. Her poems have appeared in various journals, including 3 Elements Review, the Paris Review, Innisfree Poetry Journal, Pomelian, and Ekphrastic Review, as well as in Verse Virtual, I believe. So it's a pleasure to have you, Lavina. Go on ahead. Lavina, are you still here?
I was muted. Sorry, I just unmuted. Well, I want to thank Jim for the warm welcome into the Verse Virtual community. And thanks, Robbie, for inviting me here today. Probably don't need to an intro for any of these. I tried to make these sort of some of my more playful poems, and mine tend to have a little dark side to them too. So, staying in 2020. I was a cupped nut, a fish flipping an inch out of the bowl, then dropping back, an impromptu dancer to music new to me, free form, but with a too regular beat. I bought a sound machine and fell asleep to crickets and occasional bird chirps. I took more often the corpse pose, and my attitude grew churlish. Were we on a 2-track and each engine would lock up, our wheels forever spin, remain a designated distance from each other? I was a cow in a field of too many weeds and not enough clover, a temporary sculpture of clay that hadn't been properly fired, so destined when the floods came to dissolve, yet dry for the moment behind locked doors, dressed for going out, mouthing please not like a pinched candle, more like a girl on a first date, or a fly caught between glass and screen door that must eventually slide open. Dream. It might be a push-button phone or one with a dial or a numbered scrap of burlap tacked to the wall at which I toss croutons, stones, hacky sacks. Once it was a stack of drawers I had to pull out and push back in the right sequence. Always my core strength dissipates, my fingers or wrists jerk or slip. The dial tone continues, a prompter whispers that I've neglected to enter the area code. I try again and again to call until I'm certain it's far too late. I've been told that if I can decipher its meaning, this recurring dream of needing to reach someone and failing will cease. Yet I suspect I've grown too adept at keeping secrets from myself. Isn't this a symptom that I've developed tremendous skill at losing small objects around the house? Oh, sometimes I find them, but rarely before my use for them has passed. Still, I retain a snippet of hope. Perhaps on the day my limbs have gone slack and my mind floats feather light, the tunnel might clear, a light appear, and the bolts of gauze unwind so that all of me spontaneously connects. Then I might perceive in my innermost ear and eye what I can't let myself acknowledge yet. Ghost sheep. Other methods of no benefit, she resorted to the common one of counting sheep. She had trouble seeing them. Here, a faint muzzle, there, a murky tail, a hoof, a flank, the apparition of an ear. The parts failed to gather into a credible animal. And losing count repeatedly, but not her waking state, she began to hate the sheep. Fluffy, supposedly innocent, perky, they romped along, one after the other, their expressions verging on smug. And none were able or willing to jump the low picket fence she had constructed exclusively for them. They squeezed between the slats, slid under on their bellies, leaving behind woolly clumps. Sly, unreliable. She could just imagine them circling through the dark, unpatrolled areas of her mind while her focus was within the lighted clearing where they were supposed to come into existence, pass through, then disappear forever. She didn't have proof, but she could wager she had been counting the same 2 or 3 sheep over and over. Ticked. Tick of the heating oven, tick of a locked and cooling car, or a child tapping stick against stick. As the sound outside my window changes pitch, speeds and slows, I realize that although I've never seen that twit either flit into or out of the tree on which grip fast it pits a single syllable against me, bird brain fits. Its ditty drives sliver pricks under my skin. I lower my book, tap nail tips on the slick, hard cover, flat and cool on my thighs, play needle notes in strict duet. The minutes pass, I mouth a plea, and just that quick, my partner, without protest, grants it, quits. It said, "Be careful what you wish for." I swish back a page to follow again a score of words, rising and falling bars, but my mind won't fix. I lean and lift one plastic strip of the blinds. Wind shifts the leaf screen, opening holes to blank blue. I whisper, "Where are you?" While behind me, my battery-operated clock, as I've never heard it before, all talk. I don't mind waiting. There is a weight in waiting, moving heavy as a waiter with my own stacked plate. I am waiting for my head to clear, to set my offering down, although I turn away from anyone who might say, "There, leave it there," because I want my bountiful mixed array, all that I can heft, even as the lettuce wilts, the fruit shrivels, the breadsticks grow soggy, dust settles in the soup. I carry on, aware that leaves are falling, that the trees will topple too eventually, although today they hold up the sky's porcelain blue. Once it was true that an added burden could give me greater strength and durability, but these traits apparently were specials, lately taken off the menu. And I have one more lined up. I don't know how I'm doing with time. Good. Okay, this angst again. So I'm kind of going full circle here. Where is that wind when I want it to blow me away? Maybe the plants in the garden that are just now flowering could waft their spice to me on the breeze to keep me calm, send a message that translates, "All is as it ought to be." And who can argue it isn't? I could, often do, but not today. No wind, no breeze. The sun comes, goes, accentuating the floating dust. How to stop complaining? There will be no amulet to hold and warm each moment in this time of distant connections of the cyber life. The stones around the house are off-white, gray, brown, as the days are now, And they, the days, have many edges, like a set of knives arranged to form a question. When will the accepting come? The ease, the going with the river of minutes and hours. Well, this minute is a fine one, has a roundness to it like a tiny ball I can bounce off the walls. I'm going to let it shape shift, give it a little facelift after I paint one on like you would on a balloon, so it doesn't sag so it's chipper and bright and ignites every future moment with heat, like you might light your hair on fire just for the fun, just for a second before you douse yourself, the way rain douses the ground in spring to bring green seedlings up. So, is that about my time? Okay, great, thank you.
That was terrific, Lavina. I so infrequently get to hear a whole bunch of your poems in one sitting that it's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Our last feature reader today is David Graham. He's published 4 chapbooks and 3 full-length books of poems, most recently The Honey of Earth from Terrapin. He co-edited the anthologies Local News about poetry about small towns and After Confession, Poetry as Autobiography, essays. His poems and essays have appeared in numerous journals and anthologies and have been featured on Poetry Daily and the Writer's Almanac. So take it away, David.
Thank you, Robbie. And thanks to Jim for creating this wonderful community at Verse Virtual. Getting poets together is like herding cats, they say, or pushing rope uphill. Choose your metaphor. I was delighted that Stellasue decided to read some love poems because I was hesitating about whether or not I dared do that. And I'm going to go ahead and do what I was planning. I published The Honey of Earth, as Robbie mentioned, in 2019. And I always want to show the cover, if I can get this on screen. Oops, backwards to me. Because I love the cover image. My wife Lee painted this oil painting of the kitchen that's dear to my family. And so I always tell folks, judge my book by the cover. I'm going to read a handful of poems from The Honey of Earth, and then we'll see about the time. I might slip one or so also in of newer work. But I will begin with my loose theme. You know, we've overshot Valentine's Day by a few days, but this one is called Small Round Valentine. Everything is curve and circle, rondure, swell, and dip and eddy. Everything, even in the sky, wheels and turns, and the earth orbits, and the moon, and the water in its bed flows in graceful curves on its way to return as the seasons return, and the night, and every thought worth having, like a fine meal prepared and rounded out by love's hand, like music searching its final chord, like once upon a time, again, like your body quickening to my simple hand. And I want to read the title poem from The Honey of Earth. If you don't know it, I have adapted that title from Wallace Stevens. He has a marvelous passage that I've always loved, which goes, "The honey of heaven may or may not come, but that of earth both comes and goes at once." So this is the title poem. Very fitting for Glens Falls, New York today, where it's been snowing like crazy. We wake to winter blaze on our windows. The world whitened while we slept through gray-brown weeks of rotten nutfall and littering leaves crusted with ice. We rise like fever against frost skimming the pane, We rise burning and pure as the clouds piling our backyard. If this isn't our Valentine, what is? We'll scrawl this newly blank slate like kids and erase at leisure. The world loves us, we say. The world loves us not. Solve for X, the flurries mumble, settling down to stay. Beneath the tumble and flutter of snow lie bulbs stored in ice lock, ready to burn and shudder upward from their own decay, the honey of earth, immemorial. So I send you this Valentine, though it comes and goes at once, though it kites like a snowflake, up and down, over and out. Here's the shortest love poem I've ever written, and the only one I've used the title. So this is my shot at it. I just call this Love. And you'll recognize the source in William Carlos Williams' famous Plum poem. This is just to say, she left half of the last banana on the kitchen counter this morning for me to find. I'm envious of folks who can churn out topical poems, and I've been trying for going on 3 years to get a bunch of good pandemic poems, but haven't found too many that I like. But anyway, here's one that I will probably all recognize early in the pandemic when people weren't doing anything and just hiding at home. One of the first things I noticed was this. It's called Ode to Pandemic Hair. Beards, mustaches, and thick, ropey pigtails have sprouted like mushrooms after a rain. Fathers who haven't sported a goatee since college now appear 10 years younger, while mothers have stopped dying and look fabulous, ponytails or braids streaked with ash. It's like we're all out fishing some clear stream in Idaho, loose hair flowing, wave on wave and curl on curl. The hell with styling and trims. It's 1969 again. Let's all pose for our own classic album covers. Shaggy bangs and froze and man buns, Rasta dreads and every shade of gray, lifting in the winds of chance. Even cancer patients are getting in on it, removing scarves to let their punk bristles poke skyward and shine, white or peppery, blonde or red as their scars now quietly healing. Yes, everywhere you look, the wind is letting hair rise and fall, ruffling and teasing each head like trees in a forest, grass on a hill, and not one leaf or blade forgotten. I love that poem, Waiting, that Lavina wrote, and as soon as I saw it, I thought of an older one of mine. This is not collected, and I'll just let it stand for itself. It's called Mostly Standing Around. Children at the track for gym class on a cool spring afternoon stand swaying in the breeze like tufts of grass in the sun, their slim legs and unmarked arms glinting like stones underwater. Mostly standing around, awaiting the gun, ready to jump or sprint, which they can do all day. But it's mostly awaiting their turn, clustering in gossipy groups, eyeing the other groups, measuring rank and shine, the whole pageantry of self so keen and stark, so blade sharp at that age. I want to tell them not to worry, it will all be okay. But they're not about to listen to a drifty scrap of fog, a swirl of dust there and gone before they could blink. It's right they do not see me walking past, as I do not see with the same eyes I did 50 years ago, nor are my legs the same, so tired now from half a century of mostly waiting around for my name to be called. I will read one more, and my wife and I often, when one of us is feeling especially anxious will say to each other a phrase that comes from Thelonious Monk, who had a tune called "Worry Later," which I think is a marvelous motto. If you haven't heard the story, I love this. He was apparently, Thelonious Monk was in a studio recording, and the tune did not have a title, and the engineer kept bugging him for, I need something to write on the label. And Monk said, "Worry later," by which I'm sure he meant just let's talk about that some other time. But that was the title under which it went out. And I think it was later changed to something. Maybe someone who knows can tell me. But as I say, I think it's a marvelous thing. You should always worry later. And what immediately triggered this poem, this is from the book as well, was a line from Robert Bly in I forget which of his late books, when he was writing his own version of the Ghazals. And the line he wrote was, "Most of the time we live through the night," which I stole for my title. "Most of the time the dark waters will rise, then fall into sun and bird song, everything glistening, vivid as broken glass in fresh mud. Most of the time the dire phone does not ring. Your brakes hold firm. Fever breaks. Letter arrives in plenty of time with a full amount enclosed. Most of the time when we speak our love, we mean it. When you walk the winter cemetery and 50 crows lift off at once from a bare oak, most of the time it portends nothing at all. Just a bit of dust moving around the universe. Just another omen that signifies nothing really, but what water means, flowing over the stones in the creek. Most of the time Sunday has little to tell Saturday night, and almost nothing Monday morning needs to hear. The best days are the first to flee, Virgil told us long ago. But we didn't listen, did we? We ran through summer grass and winter snow, and most of the time, that was just the right thing to do. Thank you, everyone. I recognize many far-flung friends in the audience, so I really appreciate seeing you here. And new
Thank
friends.
you very much. That was a terrific set, David.
Thanks.
Thank you for reading. Our open mic was supposed to be full, but even though there are lots of people here, I think some of the people who signed up on the open mic are not here. So when I come to a empty spot, I will choose the first person who wants to read and lets me know it in the chat or out loud. And then you'll be last to read on the open mic. So our first person is Gary Grossman. And Gary let me know that he's going to read one long poem that runs over just a wee bit. We generally have 2 poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first, but he's going to be a wee bit longer than that.
Thank you, and it's been inspirational listening to everybody else. I put my email in the chat, so if you want to comment on the poem, feel free to send me your thoughts. The title of this poem is Getting Inked at 67. Session 1. It is chilly inside, like a Tuesday in March. Everyone masked, but the repurposed massage table reminds me that my largest organ, my skin, will soon serve as canvas rather than just a tan corporeal container. The air, a faint wash of spearmint and isopropanol, as I unpeel my shirt and lay down, right arm propped on the black Sterifilm wrapped rest. We agreed on the design, but Keith craves more skin and complexity. Who am I to disagree? An old man trying to drop the reins and embrace the universe. Getting inked means letting go. Angst evaporating like a kettle left too long on the stove. New image, a helical dragon complementing the koi, ascending a waterfall on my inner forearm. a replica of Isen's 1835 color woodblock. The new tat completes the origin story of dragons. A school of koi climbs a waterfall, all but one murdered by goblins, and at the top, the lone koi evolves, now the atom of dragons. Today it's line work, black frames to enclose the thick shades of gold, green, and scarlet to come. Neat lines need a Desaad-like 5-tined conical needle. Hard-scaled armor, plates, fins, and claws. Arm shaved, stencil applied, and we're off. 2 hours stream by quickly as I ignore the low voltage zzz of the needle, pain undulating through bicep and shoulder. I try entering a trance, but it keeps crumbling like an old brick wall. Conversation ebbs and flows, a tide tossing flotsam on an oral shore. Where were you born? What part of Athens do you live in? How long have you been here? There is no privacy as I lay shirtless. Others appear on the 2 remaining tables in search of small pink daisies and Celtic knots, personal pleasures and tightened love bonds. The undergrads hesitate to speak, maybe first-timers or perhaps my lank gray hair. As the blood wells, witch hazel is applied, then a glide, A&D ointment to slow blood seepage and enhanced ink penetration. The viscous odors take me back to the shame of kids' 2 wet diapers and strawberry rash. My dragon emerges, a menacing wraith, black lines tracing irate skin. Hour 4, my muscles twitch as a spiked worm crawls up my shoulder, then down to my elbow and repeats. The pain holds a crack-like addiction, endorphins flowing from nerve cells like too much rain over red clay soil. My youngest, now 25, asks if my intention is to have a sleeve, and an easy no escapes my lips. Session 2. Keith washes the last bit of sausage biscuit down with milky coffee. Twice daily coats of A&D salve have healed my dragon, flaked skin now smooth and linen colored. I sit draping my right arm over the wrapped black rest. I'm wearing a blue cotton running tank top to counter antiseptically low studio temperatures. The shading needle drinks pine green ink from one of 7 mini pots, pigmented soldiers standing on parade. Greens, pine to chartreuse, golds, 5 to 24 karat, and fiery crimson. Zzz goes the needle, arm yo-yoing between pain and acceptance. Shading, less painful, but endorphins still flow, and 4 hours is my exit. Dragon, 82%. Strangely intimate, this inking business, as my coy and wave-tossed heart smile. Unknown bodies working bare skin, incidental brushes of hands on legs or breasts on an arm, physical, not sexual. Through the hinged joint of the Craftsman oak screen shielding the next table, I see the 20-something who's getting a circle of roses on her left hip. Plague imagery or maybe a Grateful Dead fan. She's on hour 3 when I leave. Session 3. My dragon, still somewhat naked, fins, head, and belly, and pots of ochre, butterscotch, and salmon rest on the table. A bit of fire for his tongue, too. The chair eats as I sit and hang my arm over the rest and wish for a 5 milligram Valium like my kind dentist provides pre-filling. Not so much for the pain, but to aid sitting still 4 hours. Studio busy. A sale on small flowers and sorority girls have descended. But this is my last session. 2.5 hours later, my dragon ready for takeoff. Ochre heads and horns, fiery tongue, salmon belly, and butterscotch fins. He glows with power and integrity. I hope to exceed his expectations.
Thank you. Our next reader on the open mic is Mark Petrie.
Thank you. I got to say a special hi to Stellasue. I met Stella at a writing workshop, oh God, in 1991. And Stella, I've been writing every day of my life since that workshop. So it's been a continuum, and it's sure a pleasure to see you again. And David, I just have to say, why go back to 1969 when you can go back to 1967 in my novel, A Dream Once Dreamed? And so I'm going to read two pieces. The first is going to be in the next issue of Verse Virtual, and it's called Lunch at Benji's. And some of my friends in Orange County might know about Benji's Delicatessen and the Deli Feast, which is pretty amazing. So here's that poem. The first thing my boss ordered at Benji's Delicatessen was a Dr. Brown's celery soda. He shut his eyes as he took the first sip. A broad smile formed on his face. He let out an audible, ah. This man covets a Porsche, lives in a posh Redondo Beach condo. This is the happiest I have ever seen him, all over a soda. They have little restaurants like this in Queens. He escaped the brutal harshness of his youth to play football for Woody Hayes in Ohio, converted from Judaism to Presbyterianism when he joined Price Waterhouse, yet still needs to connect with things in Queens. He connects to Queens through Jewish memories. He picks up a kosher dill in salt brine, puts it on a plate with his pastrami on rye. These are real pickles, he says between crunches. Salt brine, no vinegar. So many of us try to run away from ourselves. The only path to happiness is through ourselves. And this is a poem I'm working on. It's considering the concept of original sin. I had a near-death experience about 2 weeks ago when I got sideswiped by a semi on the Hollywood freeway. And so this was sort of a awakening from that. And it's a little dark, just to let you know. It's called Night Blossom. The Pacific spread beyond the edge of Earth. A streak of bright light cut the deep blue north of Santa Catalina Island. I stood at the top of the hill east of the coast highway, taking in as much beauty as my eyes could see, taking in as much ocean air as my lungs could hold. My focus beyond the field of cars, my lower back aching from the impact. I calibrate misery using a tire pressure meter, only to find that misery exists in a vacuum. Last night, my life came within the length of a tire pressure meter of passing. A truck rushing past a 3-lane road closure passed too closely, sideswiped my car, popped the side view mirror, and damaged the door panel. I watched stunned as the trailer tractor swayed in the gray before it disappeared into the night. And now as I lay on my bed, when I close my eyes, I don't see the Pacific. I see the swaying panel truck disappearing on the Hollywood freeway, a measure of mortality, and consider the gross injustice of my life. Firstborn, brought forth in inequity, my mother's original sin, by a father I never knew, conceived in a womb never meant to conceive, carried there like a captive in the belly of Jonah's whale. I have lived nearly 7 decades, never questioning the gloomy cloud that created my life. My dog lies next to me on our bed. She eyes me with quiet kindness, rolls onto her back for her belly scratch. She cannot connect with the price of being human. Original sin can neither be forgotten or forgiven. C'est toute ma faute, tu as raison, maman. The sin is carried by the streak of silver light that lit the world's primordial deep Saturnine blue. Lights out in the bedroom. It's all darkness now. In far northern fjords, purple crocus blossoms break through ice, blooming only in perpetual night.
Thanks, Mark. Our next reader was supposed to be Neil Creighton, but I don't see him here. So unless he's invisible, our next reader is John Dora.
Thanks, thanks, Jim and Robbie, for facilitating this community event and allowing me in. 12 years ago, I traded New Orleans brunch and dinner for the muddy waters of the Mississippi River, where my backyard has all too often been an icy skating rink this winter. But old Southern bones have become accustomed to it, and I sort of like it. So that's my introduction. I have two poems. The first poem is called Late Bloomer. There is too much plenty, too much ado, too many broken hearts, too much wasted metric, too much. And all I want is a bowl of beans. My mama died and I was sitting in her cold house after work, crying and being a mess. And you invited me over for dinner. Not having anything fancy, you said. Alan's fixing beans and cornbread. And I smiled deep down inside because that's what my mom made on so many cold winter days. And it was simple and good. I watched her die before my very eyes, like a sparrow fallen from its nest, like the end of my life. So we prayed for what it's worth, and I gave up happy hours and filling my shoes with me. And I invited electric men and women into her hospital room to join hands and cover her soul with soothing words for a cushion. Her wheelchair needed oiling because it got harder to push the closer we came to the release. And I bartered with God, and he did all sorts of little things, like having the manager at Golden Corral give me free broccoli soup from the salad bar because he felt in his spirit that I was lost and sad, that she was worth what he had to offer, that he cleared the busy highway so I could make a U-turn during rush hour, that he let me see his glowing portrait in the middle of the night in the bathroom that no one knew was there. There was too much plenty, too much ado, and then they came for her and it was quiet and sad, and I was lonely like an orphan. And I watched the birch tree quiver with her breath when no one understood how I felt. It was quiet for a year and a day, and then I flew from the nest and was fine like fish in the pond. And the second one is called When a Good Cheese Dies. I am a foodie. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm definitely a foodie being from New Orleans. You're born a foodie. This comes from an essay written by Ruby Tanda. Cheese dies, not like forever as an entity, more like a family phasing out of existence from genes gone awry, uncalibrated miscalculations, horrible matches in matrimony, substandard maintenance, perhaps climate change. The late Mary Halbert with her old Ford cheese, aged in a cool, damp English shade, French influences hybridized with steadfast English traditions of goats and sheep's milk. Her peppery Thamesboro rubbed with ashes, stacked like pyramids, both soft and bright on the sides of the tongue, with peppery notes, and her semi-soft cardo, crafted with Portuguese tradition, a vegetarian rennet from thistle stamens. This is not craft American slices. Everything changes form, evolves into something else, conserving molecules touched and breathed by Adam and Eve, by Cro-Magnon, by Galileo and Plutarch, by Chinese warlords, by Lincoln and Truman and Marilyn Monroe. Cheese, too, nothing more than bacteria-riddled curds, a wondrous performance while it is here, useful in such limited ways. Its complimentary stance with breads and wine, tickling the palates of people who elevate its overall importance with accolades, awards, ceremonious reckonings, traveling across oceans to render a taste of what might last no longer than a family's passage back into the soil. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was a pleasure to listen to. Our next reader is Dick Westheimer.
What a great reading. I'm just so happy to have gotten to hear all the features and the subsequent poems. It's terrific. I will read my two most recently rejected Rattle Poets Respond poems. So the first one is in responding to the report that the mega drought in the Southwest is the worst ever in any way of measuring what's happened in the last 1,200 years. In the times of dryness and death, 800 years before present. When did we know it was time to leave? It was when every day was ash and sand, when we no longer heard the verdant birds join the morning chorus, when the costas winged west and left us songless, left us with dry mouths, unable to whistle, too alone to sing. The thrashers were last, their scythed bills rattling in tongues, a sign that even the dead among us recognized. We of our people who remained heard the echoes, followed the insistent whit, whit, wheat, their final warning away. No one looked back. All was salt. Ahead we found rock that wept water like tears we'd been too dry to shed. There we carved our homes. There our children didn't know the time when birds drank dust. There we remembered our dead, less and less, as the rains washed us of our loneliness. 20 years after present. And here again we live in the dry times, our rivers muck, our birds flown, our gardens bone and brush. We are captives behind our walls, built of faucets and electric outlets, screens and talking heads. Now the pipes flow with rust, our devices dark, our pantries empty, and on the other side, the long walk. We've no creatures to track to some bountiful place, so we follow each other. None of us wise. We walk in circles. There is no place to go. We should have known before we set our homes on fire. And the second one was in response to, in Arizona, there was a Catholic priest who used the word we instead of I when baptizing children, and all of them have been nullified by the elders of the priest. And this one is written, you can't see the form here, but it's written in the form of a Bible verse with 1s and 2s down the page, called Genesis in Retrograde. In the beginning, when the God baptized herself in the waters beneath the firmament, she said, "Let there be us, all of us who created this place, the algae and amoeba, the ungulates and oaks, the feldspars and gneisses. Let us be we, and it was good. Like begat like, every became all, and all was enough. The people, the air, and fruiting trees agreed. But time passed, and the two-leggeds wanted more, found fire and iron, which they forged into names they bound to all the creatures that were not them. They created a new God, one they named God. And their God named God said it was good and gave certain men powers. He created rituals of wine and smoke and bread and incantations, and these certain men built a scaffold of he's and I's, exiled the us's and she's. They wore robes of silk, wrote texts in tongues only they could decode, pried the feldspars and nices from the earth, built monuments to their man-god named God, felled oaks they hewed into steeples, and in exchange for silver and coin and red heifers, sold phantasms of glorious god bodies, streets of gold and glass, an eternity of eyes and me's.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next person on the open mic that signed up is not here. I don't see Scott Galasso. So we'll go to our next person on the list, who is Ed Ruzica. Are you here, Ed? I saw you earlier.
He's here.
Okay, here I am.
All
Sorry.
right.
I'm really savvy with computers. Oh yeah. I'm reading. What a great group! What a great reading! What a great way to spend a Saturday. I'm reading a poem that just came out in Comstock Review called "Variations on a Theme" by Juan Moreau. I think it's his most famous poem about a piebald dog and a ladder, and very dreamlike. If I could train a spotted dog to hold the ladder steady on a mountaintop, when the harvest moon drifts close as a balloon on a tether, I might be able to snatch a hold and pull myself up into one of the smaller craters of the moon, where all would be ghastly quiet, pale snowscape, nothing but a scour of wind, chalk horizon to chalk horizon, lash and buff crests and troughs, every breath thin as silk, every crater another O. Of course, it would take a Herculean effort to train that hound, to make sure he would come back on time the next night, not too rum drunk the way spotted pups are wont to be. That hound might wander across a field bowing a fiddle tune while I stand perched to leap back off as our illuminated moon orbits its sweet chariot over the designated peak. What if there were no dog and ladder where dog and ladder should be? I don't want my bones to bleach to chalk dust, just a good rest. I would have to go through truckloads of doggy treats to get the beast trained right and back with the ladder at precisely dusk, not off whizzing in the weeds. But isn't that just the sort of fly in the ointment mom and pop never fully prepped us for? How every dream has a price tag. But I could sleep so well, curled into a cusp of shadow in my pock of lunar chalk, as the great globe gently rocks on top of pitch black tides. That is how I would like it, and how I would like to be remembered as a rider in dark wind, charmed by moonlight. And then I was going to do one more. This is a moon day for me. The moon alone. It would be dark. I was living through years made for darkness. I felt the edge of night on my skin and searched out places where the moon lay down on water. Later, I would take women there. We'd laugh, my shirt, their blouse lifted. They whisked panties off with a dancer's twist of the ankle. The moon sees more than I will ever admit about how people meld, fuse, stand up, saunter back to a car basked in moonlight, turn an engine over, hold the steering wheel with hands still amazed, as if they had just been part of a magician's show, and leave behind a quiet moon on its quiet water. Thank you again, James and Robbie, for a fantastic group and day.
Well, thank you, Ed. Thanks for reading. Our next person, I'm not sure, is here. Eddie Foreman. Is Eddie Foreman here? I don't believe I've seen him. So if Eddie's not here, the next person on the list is Ruth.
There. I'm so glad to be here. This has really been a terrific reading. Everybody has been great. Sometimes in the open readings there are some real bad ones. These have been wonderful. This poem is called Behind the Glass. Because my windows are double paned, I don't hear the noise from the freeway below my house. I don't hear the Jeeps, Peterbilts, Amerigas tankers, the Volkswagens, Volvos, and Fords. I don't hear the neighbor's brindle boxer barking, 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 although others have complained about it. Every weekday morning, those who live up the hill drive past my house, heading for work, the market, the hairdressers, or in one case, to Surfers Point. They are as ghosts to me. I hear my fingers clicking on the keyboard. I hear the refrigerator kicking on. I hear my slippers scuffle along the floor as I walk to the kitchen to put the coffee on. This summer, I will hear the hum of my new air conditioning system, the one I wished we'd had that scorching summer when my husband lay dying in his bed by the western window. But I do not hear the mockingbird outside in the magnolia, singing its heart out for want of love. Okay, this other one's a little more cheerful. It's called What to Do. What to do when the car won't start. 1, take a deep breath, turn the key again. Pull the key out, put it in again, turn the key, step on the gas. 2, what to do when the engine is flooded. Take a deep breath, wait some more, turn on the key, step on the gas. Decide it's okay if you're late. What to do when the starter just clicks. Take a deep breath, go into the house and drink a glass of water. Wait to see if the car will spontaneously recover. 4, what to do when the starter doesn't click at all. Take a deep breath, call a guy across the street. When he doesn't answer, call the auto club. Call your lover, who gets there first. 5, what to do with your lover. After the auto club leaves, decide you're not going anywhere. Take a deep breath.
Thank you for the good instructions.
Thank you much.
It's Julian.
Hi, thank you for
Hi.
having me. Yeah. So I have a couple of poems. This is called Do the Math. Do the math. The first box I played in was probably cardboard, a crate of a dozen milk tins from the neighborhood sundry shop. My mom would empty it and let me sit in it. In my imagination, it was a boat floating down the Ganges or the Amazon. I might have been light enough for my brothers to have lifted me in it, circling the round table in the hall like a Wright brother on a maiden flight, whooping with hands outstretched. My sister may have tied a string and dragged me around in it, like a train choo-chooing as we rode along, around Mom's kitchen or dangerously down the staircase. We may have fallen, cried, laughed it off. No one, would have died. When they suit me up and lay me in that last box, I won't get to choose its make or let my imagination run. The pallbearers will disperse the weight by 6, but the new lightness will be heavy for some. Do the math. In a marriage, 1 plus 1 never adds to 2, and 1 times 1 is never 1. Human value multiplies with age. When you divide, you make things smaller. When you add, you overthink it. When you subtract, you negate me. We were never meant to tick each other off within boxes. We color our lives outside of them. We are equal only when our imagination soars on the shoulders of others before us and after us. Both sides are never a balanced equation. When falling and rising is a rite of passage. Do the math. 6 feet under, 12 feet above. The dirt between us is soil for the planting, or a bucket of it to cart away and claim your own. The grave robbers dream of treasures beneath. The cemetery dogs hope for pickings above. We only light the candles or place the flowers after the grave has been weeded and cleaned. Human folly is calculating the losses on either side. The sky smiles knowing clouds come and go by catching drifts. And blue is only one of its many colors. You are limited only by the box you pine for, a child. All else is imagination. Do the math. The second one is called Delivered. Thank you. And so we sit at the table partaking of the first meal since the lockdown, a potluck of the homemade, home-cooked, home-delivered. A gathering of friends new and old, unmuted, unzoomed, live, in person, fully embodied, greeting each other like refugees, meeting on the dock, our boats having survived the treacherous crossing of middle-class suburbia, and stepping back onto the shores of human connection again, wetting our cold feet and lapping up warm chatter about pets, pasta, pastries, prices, politics, and the pandemic, always the pandemic, and thankfully of our common love of books and writing and poetry, and missing sitting in darkened theaters with strangers to watch a movie or a play, or just chilling with a warm-up pre-concert cocktail, perhaps a Long Island tea or two before listening to an orchestra, fingers fondling keys, bows caressing strings, lips pressed against mouthpieces, hugging tubas, the tish-tish of sticks on cymbals, being enveloped by the sense around sounds of music played by real, in the flesh, humans. And in the end, there is laughter, ribbing, and the teasing out of each other's backgrounds, our reasons for being, why the need to put words on rectangular screens, this unboxing of the isolation inside of us, this shedding of thickened skins, double vax, immunized and unmasked, fully ensconced in that most singular of human acts, the art of conversation, manifesting our ancestral DNA of gathering round the embers of dying fires under stars, trading stories, sharing opinions, and yes, even gossiping, just to know we are alive. We are still alive. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. I'm glad you got to read in the open mic. Well, that's our reading today. And it was a pleasure to be here and for our terrific readers, all of you, features and open mic. And so we'll see you next month.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Robbie.
lot.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, everyone. See you again.